So we are short of quorum by one right now, and so we will go ahead and begin and not deliberate on anything, but receive information following the order of the agenda as we can. So the first item that we can receive information about is a conciliation agreement update from Ashley.
Okay, does everybody have this? Is that included? Okay. So we wanted to just sort of give you a status update about the elements of the conciliation agreement. There's 7 points. We've talked about this before, so it's not necessarily new information. And Davey, of course, jump in at any time. But I'll just do a run through of the status of each point as outlined in this handout here. So, of course, first is the payment. I hear a door opening. Welcome. So payment to all eligible artists for their grants. And so that all happened on the timelines and deadlines that we had laid out and agreed upon together. And I put the payment status as of last week. We're still working on processing a few of the remaining grants due to things like project changes or just sort of making sure that the correct signatures are there for everybody, and those few that it took a little while to make contact with. So we are moving along. I do expect 100% completion in this payment of grants. That's the commitment and the goal that I can give you for what I can do for that. Number 2 was that Metro Arts will communicate the deadline extensions for artists who are receiving their funds through this agreement, and so, or through the prior authorization of the Thrive grants. I think that this is being practiced, or that this is being fulfilled, but I've had some communication challenges from Metro Arts in just trying to get documentation to confirm it. And so what I've documented here for you is just showing our good faith effort in order to have some kind of documentation submitted to us that shows compliance with this agreement. And I've had some challenges in trying to obtain that. So that is number 2. Number 3 was that Metro Legal would share with me the payment tracker. That was done, no problems there. Number 4 was that additional conciliation meetings would happen between Metro Arts, MHRC, and the Title VI complainants. Those were completed with no problems or objections. The agreement just required one additional meeting, but Metro Arts, the representatives being the interim director and the commission representative were willing to have an additional meeting. And so we really appreciate their agreement to continue the conversation with the complainants. And so those meetings have happened. Number 5 is that the interested parties listed here will find a legal path to protect and continue the Thrive Grants Program, or a Thrive-like grants program, with a few steps for how we would do that. So we have established our working group. You've heard me talk about this before. Those are the dates that we have had our initial meetings. That the working group shall identify a mechanism and report to you every 60 days. So here I am doing that again. If you flip the page over, one of our first deadlines, which was the end of October, was to identify options available for the Thrive grant program. This is what I reported on last month. So we identified 2 options, and I told you last month that we were leaning toward a fiscal sponsorship framework. Should I pause and have our chair say that we have quorum? I don't know, or should I just keep going?
I think you should keep going. And
okay, sorry. Okay. And so our next deliverable, as required by the agreement, is that we will provide our I'll call it a policy recommendation to the Arts Commission as the authorizing body that will need to approve it, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so I included some details on the page here. We have a working framework. We've fleshed out the details, supporting documents of how this fiscal sponsorship framework will work. One of the things that we are focused on right now in the working group is identifying a few nonprofit organizations that would be willing to serve as a fiscal agent for artists who need that. We're having some exploratory conversations right now with various organizations, and so I feel like that if you have ideas maybe of somebody who would want to serve that role, maybe like some mission alignment there, I'm happy to chat individually with you, but we are working on that. And yeah, the working group, I want to clarify, or I want to specify that the working group is not responsible for implementing the framework as we write it, as the commission approves it. That is completely and solely the responsibility of art staff of carrying that out once the policy is put together. But again, the working group was a way of having a collaborative process as part of this rebuilding sort of public confidence and collaboration and identifying a way forward. So that's why we're all at the table right now. But what we collectively come up with is for art staff to implement after approval from the Arts Commission. The next thing, number 6, is for Metro Legal to create a user-friendly manual for boards, commissions, and department heads that really describes the roles and responsibility of Metro Legal with regard to the operations and functions of boards and commissions. And so we had a date by which legal had to supply us the draft of that. They sent us that as they had agreed to do. We had 2 weeks to respond. Davey, Mel, and myself, we sat down and wrote out some comments and feedback and submitted to them. They have since incorporated some of those feedback and comments that we had and agreed to schedule a meeting so that we could have a dialogue about some of the substantive questions and suggestions we had. So we feel like that's going positively in developing that, and it's something that you all and other boards and commissions will benefit from once we finalize it. And then finally, the last one on here is number 7, is that Metro Arts will ensure robust community engagement in its work to develop new grant policies. I'll say there were some challenges around this as well. The deadline that Metro, so you can see the specific language was that Metro Arts would, in collaboration with MHRC, establish a plan for robust community engagement about their new grant policies. There were some challenges in, I guess, shared expectations about what that might be and challenges in having that deliverable be met. And so we were clear up front, you can see the dates here, about some inquiries that we sent around this element of the agreement. And then in the recent week, in the last 10 days or so, was when some of those details have started to come together. And so Metro Arts is holding 3 community engagement forums at the end of this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And those are Metro Arts events for them to talk with their constituency and their community about the grant policies that they are approving. We will be there, but they're not co-hosted events. We just collaborated on making sure that there is a plan for some of that engagement. Questions or things that Davey might want to add?
Well, I just want to make emphasis of a couple of things. When this deadline was missed, and as we began to discuss it internally, Director Dietz called, and we talked about what that meant, and we made an agreement early on that we would not, it was a deadline miss, but it didn't trigger a response from us that something bad had happened to the deal. So, because it didn't involve MHRC or legal for that matter, and there was the promise that this would get fixed. It has. So I'm grateful for that collaborative thing that's happening. Also, the same thing with the manual for the boards and commissions that Ashley said is going to be a benefit to all boards and commissions. That was part of this conciliated agreement. So we're waiting to meet with them. They incorporated a lot of the language. I think it's going to be a valuable tool for boards and commissions going forward, which is a result of the initial Title VI complaint.
I have a couple of questions about the public notice. First of all, how was that? What was that? How was the public notified? And I'm also looking and seeing that the notice just went out last Thursday. And do we really think that that gave anyone that's interested enough lead time to, make sure that they can fit this into their schedule? I mean, giving people 6-7 days. So those two questions. What was the public notice? How were people notified? And are we really sure that that gave people enough time to be able to plan to be there?
Yeah, so the answer to how was it issued, Metro Arts used their email listserv, which I don't know how many people are on that or who is on it, but they did issue it over their listserv and posted on the Nashville.gov calendar. And on Friday, I know that Thrive Thrive applicants who have pending applications received it via email. I am not sure the date that general operating applicants received it, although I believe that they have received it. I just don't know if that was Thursday or Friday. And I believe that they have it on their social media. I can't speak for the intended audience about whether that's enough time for them. I think what I will say is that there is a desire to fulfill the requirements and move the grant process forward. And I believe that this step will help ensure that is done correctly. There has been just a lot of misinformation, communication challenges. And so I do know that a number of grantees want information. And if they're able to prioritize that in their schedule, when grantees have reached out to me, I continued to be contacted last week with some questions about it after the information was shared. I let people know that they can continue to reach out to staff or submit comments to the commission, as they can do at any time if they're not able to attend those events. But I hear and I share your concern about the lack of notice. And I don't know that I have anything to really say beyond that, but yeah, the sort of communication challenges that have existed the last few months, I do think will motivate folks to come to the events if they are able to. So I hope that people will be able to.
I just want to express a couple of concerns. First, that I don't have a great deal of confidence about how widely this was disseminated, and was it really getting to all the appropriate audiences? And also the fact, as Commissioner Johnson points out, that they are back-to-back 3 days in a row is also troubling. And I appreciate what you said about their willingness to get this done. But I have a bit of concern that this feels a little bit like bureaucratic box checking, that they're sort of, we did it. Oh, sorry that not everybody knew about it, but we told, we sent out this notice, and, so I just have some concern about how genuinely and sincerely they approached this.
I would agree with you, and I guess what I want to try to say here to that is that we've been so close to this, we actually get asked about things that are not in our purview. At the Arts last commission meeting, it appeared that maybe there was going to be some discussion around the allocation criteria. Well, this is supposed to have taken place prior to that. So all of that has gotten moved, and even the resolution that will ultimately go before council has been moved on down in the month of November to get these things done. Because they, as you see here, they were supposed to have been done before that. So I guess all I can assure you is that MHRC is doing our part, but the authority rests with the Arts Commission.
And I appreciate that. I have no doubt that you guys are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing and trying to honor the commitments that were made. That just really bothers me. That again, it just feels like it's a bunch of bureaucratic box checking, that they are just trying to do it and say, well, we lived up to what we were supposed to, and it's not fully in the spirit of what was supposed to have happened.
Well, I'll assure you that we will share that.
Thank you.
Before we move on, can I go ahead and call this meeting to order, just in case any of this is considered deliberation? I'm going to call this to order, this meeting for November 4th, pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws. Please take notice that the decisions of the Metro Human Relations Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. Okay, thank you very much. Back to you, Commissioner.
Okay,
Commissioner Holmes.
thank you. I appreciate your measured words here, Ashley, which when I see that, I get a little concerned because I appreciate that, but that gives me like pause. So just wanted to say that. But before so here's where and I apologize for being late, you guys. We have dates that you sent out information. Did we get any confirmation back, or is it a one-way street on the communications?
It is some of both. I will say there has had to be a fair amount of clarifying and reconfirming what some of these things in the agreement mean and who is responsible for what things. And so, yeah, I'm not just in these dates that I put, it hasn't been just an email sent into a void, but it might be passing the email around with no clear response or answer to the question coming back, to give an example.
Okay. So in the previous grant solicitation process, there was an individual that went out and drummed on the doors of all of these agencies and artists to get them to respond. So that was not necessarily just email and social media. It was a concerted effort from an individual to make that happen. So is that process happening now, or is the communication strictly by email and social media?
For these events? For
these events and disseminating the communication to the artists, is that happening in that format?
So there's two categories of applicants. There's the general operating, which is organization grants, and then there's the Thrive grants, which is individual artists for projects. And so there's been a little more communication with the operating applicants. There's fewer than 100 of those, and there's 200 approximately Thrive applicants. And so those applications were submitted in January of this calendar year. So that's some of the frustration as well, is that Thrive applicants did not receive direct communication to everybody, like a mass communication to Thrive applicants until last week when their application was submitted in January of 2024. So several months that passed with no communication. So that's some of the frustration that is very present. The operating applicants, I will say, have gotten a little bit more communication over the last month than Thrive applicants have. We've done everything that we can to truly encourage more communication, because I continue to get contacted by people who've acquired my information through whatever means they have acquired my name and my phone number. When it comes to notifying the muralists and the small organizations about their grant that they were now eligible for, I am the one that made those phone calls to try to find people's phone numbers, to try to do what I can to reach out, identifying mutual friends, being like, can you help me connect to this? So I did some of that, or I did some of that work. And for the community engagement meetings, I know that there are staff members who hear from applicants and are doing what they can to get the word out. And word of mouth, I think, is a thing that will draw people out to these events. But yeah, I don't have like a list that I could show myself or show others of, phone time was spent for an hour on this day to really turn out for this event, at that level.
It sounds almost as if you are ad hoc staff.
I will say we've been not trying to do that and trying to keep it within the framework here. And I do hope that these community engagement meetings this week will be used to clarify that, MHRC is not the agency running these grants or anything, because there has been so much miscommunication and misinformation, false information that's kind of come from a lot of different sources. And so I continue to speak with anybody who gets my contact information and reaches me. But I am always making the connections to who they should really be going to. But yeah, we've done a lot of clarifying, kind of like giving warm handoffs where they appropriately go.
Well, let me step in right there. Awesome. I've made it clear that we're not going to do their work. I've shared with Ashley, who's been asked to do tasks that are outside of her work. And so while we will answer calls from the community and provide information, as she says, try to hook people up with the people they need to be hooked up with, some of which they should not have to reach out to us. But again, I've made it clear and in public space that we're not doing that.
I appreciate those comments, but I just wanted to add on to these two previous comments. One is that this outreach program previously was successful in reaching out to a broader range of artists. That's why we had this dilemma of a greater number of applicants for Thrive. So that was a good problem. We didn't deal with it well in terms of like distributing the funds, obviously. That's why we're at where we're at. But to do this very quickly would be going backwards and not be building on the successes that the Art Commission did previously before this. And so I think that is a point that is worth mentioning and asking, what is the difference in terms of the outreach and the effort and the number of applications that do come in. My second question is that this says new grant policies, but we are in the middle of the current fiscal year application with only a couple months before the next cycle typically begins. To which does that new grant policies apply? Is a question, and how do we move about it? And then, so that gets back to this question of this initial outreach. Is this initial outreach right now, this upcoming week, for the next grant cycle? Or is it calling back all the current applicants to give new guidelines and policies?
Yeah, so the applications that were submitted in January of 2024 have not been scored, funded yet. So the decision about who gets grants for this current year is for those applicants. So this is not to go identify new people to apply. It's to look at the pool of existing ones. And so the reason why the advice that was given to the Arts Commission was staff are recommending changes to the applications or the frameworks and the guidelines that people submitted previously in January. So it's essentially if I applied for a grant at this time, but by the time it gets scored, it's actually a different thing, then that is a new grant guideline. So that was the advice. I hope I'm explaining that in a way that makes sense. That's why this advice was given, that some of the changes that are being recommended make these new grant policies, and you therefore need to engage your applicants and community around what those changes are. Does that make sense?
So this is so that people who have already applied for fiscal year 2024 can potentially update their applications should the new grant policies render those applications obsolete in some way?
And guidelines is also being advised that is how we think about allocations. If you recall, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but the applications for operating grants were based on size of organization and these things called base percentages and what you could request. And so if that structure is being proposed to be changed, potentially being proposed to be changed, then that kind of changes what it is that people applied to.
So these people have been sitting around for a year waiting to know if they're going to get grants, and they're finding out now in November that they might have to totally redo their grants. I don't understand what's happening at Arts. I really don't. I'm sorry.
So let me say this, and maybe this is a good kind of summary. I will say there's the confusion that you have, I think, is confusion that is shared by many, and there's not been decisive conversation kind of around when are decisions being made, who makes them, how is the decision-making process happening. And so I am hoping that these sessions this week, for people who are able to go, I see, will help clarify some of that. But yes, it is folks who applied in January, in the timeline that they were given, said that grants would be dispersed in July. So we're July, August, September, however many months behind. And the proposal is that the grant year or the grant period would be probably like late January to June. So it's a truncated timeline. I'm worried I'm going to get too much into the weeds. And this is not what, like Davey said.
Right. This is not MHRC's business. This is for Arts to figure out. And as always, Ashley, Davey, the whole staff, I want to commend y'all for the way that you've needed to babysit this other city department this entire time. I think then to the concerns about this being short notice and people not being able to show up, I would say let's just get it over with so that these current grantees can find out what's happening to them, and so that we can potentially hit the new year running. Although, are we going through this again next year as they continue to reevaluate with a new executive director? Again, not your problem, just talking out loud. That's my opinion. I'm done talking now.
I just not sure that I have a great deal of confidence that even with this truncated timeline that you're talking about, that they're going to be able to be successful in doing and distributing these grants, regardless of who they're to. If these artists are having to reapply, really, I mean, we're
and
moving into the holidays.
It's
to the end of
people's
the year.
livelihoods,
Yeah,
too, that this is all
exactly.
put at risk, and that's incredibly infuriating to me.
Yeah.
Again, it's not our problem to solve, sadly. It's their problem to solve. When they solve it, then I guess we're allowed to have opinions.
Well, I see a bigger issue because if we are calling the current applicants back to advise them on the new policies and inform them of the new policies, that's not outreach.
That's not.
That is just an update
Yeah.
that you might have to reapply. If you don't apply, update your application, however that may be, then it's invalidated. That's not an outreach for applicants or to invite people, Nashvillians at large, to apply. So the question of outreach here, it really is a question of this is really important because it might be called outreach, but it's not outreach. It's actually inreach. It's like reaching into people who have already applied. So that's a technical question that's important about the content that will be provided this upcoming week and who it's addressing. It has to be specific in terms of, is it current applicants that are still in progress, or is it reaching out? Are they looking to the next fiscal year already, which we're having two different timelines, but the definition of outreach is totally different depending on that timeline.
I think you are valid. All this is valid, not as an excuse, maybe just an explanation. The entire commission has been in flux. Now they have a full complement. They have a new chair that just took over last week, I believe. And so we're hopeful that they will get up to speed very quickly. But yes, to your points, and we are monitoring each and every one of these points on this agreement, that to acknowledge the unsaid, that we left many things on the table. So in acknowledgement of that, these things that were agreed upon, they are our priority, and that we are pushing these.
Can you share the times and locations on these dates with us? Because I mean, if I have time, I would like to actually come to one of those meetings and see what's going on.
Yeah, and we can send this over email as well. Sorry for not putting it on the sheet. So Wednesday, November the 6th at 6:15 to 8:15 at the East Park Community Center. So it's the evening option. Thursday is the morning option at 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. also at East Park Community Center. And Friday is at 12 to 2 on WebEx, so the virtual option. And
So two of the three are in the same place?
yes.
Cool.
I believe it's a place where they have a committee that often meets there, so it's a place known for where arts events happens. And yeah, to that, maybe that's a good place to end it. I encourage anybody who wants to submit comments or questions. I think it's good to ask questions as well. If you want to go to the event, I'll be there, so you can come sit with me. Any last words?
And we will definitely relay you all's concerns to the groups involved in the agreement.
I just have a quick question. I mean, what do our voicing of concerns with the implication of this agreement have? I guess I'm thinking from a parenting standpoint, right? Like, what are the implications to this child if they don't change their ways or try to tighten it up or whatever in a way that we find in accordance with the agreement? Because it sounds like we don't find what their current actions to be in accordance with the agreement.
Well, at this point, I would say the parties in the agreement are in alignment, but they're on the art side is where this lies. So the agreement amongst the other three parties is still the same, that I believe that the other two parties, legal and finance, are all acting in good faith around their commitment to this agreement. So this part here is a place in which we're agreeing to move along in this area, but to the point that was made earlier by the commissioner, community engagement is a specific thing with when it seeks specific results, and I would agree that this is not what this is, but we've agreed to move forward in this way. Again, because the harm from my perspective is the money not getting out to the artist, and they're already going to have to deal with a shortened year, and then we're right back into the process again. And even in the mechanism for Thrive, this may not be the long-term going forward way. That because have some concerns with funds that are allocated, and then there's an administrative cut that comes off, which may result in the artist actually getting a smaller amount of money. But to facilitate this year, because the commitment, again, I believe, with all the parties are to keep, as I think is quoted somewhere, Thrive or a Thrive-like program. And so if I did not feel comfortable with the parties were acting in good faith about that, I would say that out loud, and I would be full-throated and crystal clear if I did not think the parties in the agreement were not committed. So we're still trying to get through it, I guess is what I'm saying. Before, we're not thinking about escalation or any of that at this point, because again, I think that where it's struggling at is on the art side.
I want to recognize Commissioner Johnson.
Appreciate that. Just a quick question, because it's been mentioned a couple of times that part of what you all as the staff have been trying to navigate is work that you see that need, or tasks that you see that need to be done, but are outside the purview of MHRC to do them. However, with our role as it is developed over the time that this conciliation agreement has come into place, while they're not tasks, what I hear is that these aren't tasks that we are tasked with, but that we are in a role to see that they are being done. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it still kind of ends up in our court. I mean, it feels like, right? I mean, that we, for lack of a better word, end up having to be taskmasters of limited power to actually make sure that the tasks are being completed. Is that correct? I mean, just trying to focus on the MHRC responsibility or non-responsibility to see that the terms of the agreement are brought into effect, and trying to understand what our ability is or responsibility is to see that those tasks are completed, that those parts of the agreement are completed. How do you all understand your role in, or how do we collectively understand our role in making sure that both sides of the conciliation agreement are actually continuing in the work that needs to be done? I appreciate the fact that there have been folks that have needed to be come into place, roles that needed to be filled, ducks that needed to get into their proper rows. But it seems like this is going to be an ongoing thing. We have a new chair, and we potentially have a new head of the department coming down the pike. So how do we understand MHRC's role in helping see through the terms of the agreement in the midst of the flux and change on the MAC side that continues to seem to complicate the process of actually having this stuff brought to bear?
Well, we're going to, again, as I said earlier, based on what was left on the table, this agreement is paramount to us in finalizing this. We agreed to this communications plan to keep this process moving. But we agree, I believe a couple of the other parties also agree, that this is not what was intended. And so it's like we're kind of limited in what our response is going to be. Because again, to say, no, we want a complex, comprehensive community engagement plan with various geographic locations spread out over times, at different times of the day to give an account for the different groups of people, all of those considerations. That's how, yes, that's the way it should have been done. And again, to do that would just add more time toward getting whatever the ultimate criteria would be in front of the Arts Commission to approve, and then from there to ultimately show up in council to be voted on in a resolution.
And so as part, just that all makes perfect sense. As Commissioner Pastrick also noted, we have folks whose livelihoods are tied up in all of this. And so it is, I hear what you're saying as far as balancing the need to do it in this comprehensive way versus getting it done, right? And that creates its own complications at this point. As part of the policy discussions or policy recommendations that the working group has had, is a part of those conversations suggestions about communication strategies, outreach strategies, are those also on the table, so that when we get to past this, that there are policy recommendations about how to avoid this challenge of comprehensive versus expedient that we're having right now?
That specifically is really beyond the scope of the working group, which, includes a finance rep, a legal rep. It's not their role to be advising or making recommendations for things like community engagement or communications to applicants. And so that's really outside the working group.
I just have to make a comment because we have to move on to business because some of commissioners have to leave at 5. But I think that's the plan for robust community engagement. That would be the plan, right? Like, this is enacting an event. That an event is not a plan. The plan would be to continue to expand the Thrive pool of applicants, would be the plan, I think, as I understand, and being robust.
I believe once we get past the events that are happening this week and figuring out what needs to be done to get grants out with the dwindling months that are left, I will say I believe that Metro Arts will be willing and ready to sit down and do just that, to talk about that. So it's a good note to end on. Yeah.
Just one quick question. This community engagement plan that we're operating under, the lack of geographic times, all that, does this have any potential of opening up additional complaints from potential grantees saying, I wasn't given proper notification. Is there any potential for any other complaints that could be filed?
I don't know if I could answer that with any being definite. I mean, I think we would deal with those as they came up. But to your point, I guess I really have no way of guessing that because we have not necessarily heard anything particular or specific to what you just said.
Thank you all for your comments. Thank you, Ashley, and the staff for continuing with this important work. We have to move on to business as Commissioner Galvin has to leave. There are no public comments. We have confirmed quorum. Review and approval of the minutes. Any comments about the minutes? I have one thing I'd like to add is that for the 60th anniversary event, that also Commissioner Stringer Holmes and Dr. Charleston are also to be on that committee. But I don't see any other changes. Are there any other changes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, okay. That's unanimous. No no's and no abstentions. Thank you very much. Is there any other order of business that we have to vote on or deliberate on? I don't think so.
No.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Commissioner Galvin. Thank you for being here. I know it's a busy time for you. Thank you. Thank you. You may help us get the quorum. Old business. Thank you. Thank you.
See you at the victory party tomorrow.
Language access. E.D. Tucker, please.
Kathy.
Hello, Commissioners. Good to see you. So this past Thursday, Director Tucker and I were able to give an update about where we are with language access in front of a department head meeting. It was something that was really great, cool, and to prepare for because it allowed me to kind of look at everything that we've been working on as well. So I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights of what we talked about in that meeting. As of now, MHRC has conducted 2 Title VI trainings. We've had great attendance at both of them, so we'll be updating our list. But however, this summer there was a Title VI survey that came out on behalf of HR where 48 departments self-reported and participated in that survey. So as of July of 2024, we're going to update the attendance record, but 20 departments had reported that they hadn't attended a Title VI training. 31 departments reported that they did not have a language access plan. 16 departments did report that they have a language access plan, but only 7 of those included what that language access plan looked like. There were 7 additional departments that did say that they would have one that would be implemented in fiscal year 2025. We also told them about the Tennessee Language Center pilot program that we were part of this last fiscal year. The Tennessee Language Center was awarded $50,000 for the state of Tennessee to be able to conduct a language access pilot program. $36,000 of the $50,000 was used by Metro government. A lot of that had to do, the biggest price had to do with translation of documents. So a lot of departments, the 6 departments that participated in that program translated documents into their type 3 or 5 languages that were spoken. All 6 departments received customized language access support. So that means that they have their language access plan now created. And then of course, some of them received interpretation in person or telephonic. It really depended on the services and needs of those 6 departments. The reason why we wanted to bring all of that up is because language access is part of Title VI, and we wanted the department head specifically to understand the necessity of why they needed to be compliant, right? They need to be compliant with federal law, and that we as a department are here to help with them getting there. We're not just here to wave the finger, we're here to get them there. And these costs can vary, right? If we spent $36,000 over a 5-month period, each department has a specific necessity, and to even know what you're requesting for, or what that budget should look like for your department, it's important that you work with us so that we can go through a 4-factor analysis to make sure that they have all the information they need about what the reality of this cost will be. There are some contracts that are up for renewal, about $10 million of possibility of expenses under language services for Nashville, and that's across 5 years. And that's also something that our team is working on and evaluating those vendors and trying to see how much money has already gone towards that. So we asked the department heads to support us in acquiring that data, because even though we have some of the information of the vendors from the past 5 years, we still need more information of just how much money has been spent for language services over the last 5 years in Nashville. It's important to be federally compliant, and it's also important to make sure people in the city feel welcomed and have equal access to public services. So with that, I'll turn it over to our director.
I am grateful to Mayor O'Connell and his administration, Kristen Wilson, for even giving us the opportunity to address the department heads. This is a monthly meeting that the mayor's office calls and hosts for all the department heads. And so inviting us to present on this in front of that group adds a certain amount of legitimacy that we don't get anywhere else. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that we have. We also got from them pledge to assist us in getting the information so that hopefully we'll move towards some hopefully quasi-official way to do a metro-wide assessment of what the language access assets and the needs are for that. So I thought it was a great meeting. Appreciate Kathy with the information that she shared and even the trainings that we've done. But I believe that as we move forward, hopefully this relationship will be entrusted in an official way with MHRC to be able to audit, inspect, those type things as it relates to compliance. Because attached to language access is also the deaf and those that are hearing impaired. And again, part of this job to me is we get to pay attention to those things that the general population more often than not does not pay attention to. And what I've come to understand is that when these rights are violated, they're always violated on a human body. When a person does not have, if they go to codes to get a permit and they don't have language access, they wear that. It physically, emotionally has that policy impact on a person. And we're keenly aware of that. And we're trying to do everything we can to become a larger part of that.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
That's awesome. Keep it up.
I do think it is important work, especially as the city changes and more immigrants come and feed us, take care of us, and to be with us. I think this is a rhetoric that needs to change after this election, that we should celebrate immigrants more than anything else. So thank you for that work. Violence interruption.
Short update. We executed a interagency agreement with finance and MHRC to become the fiduciary agents of these funds. We're still in the process of putting together the proposal that is before us. We have not made a determination. We're still compiling it at this time. So we're still moving forward with it.
Thank you. Before we move on to new business, we didn't do the financial update. Oh, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apparently missed the meeting about violence interruption. Could you tell me more specifically what that is?
There are a couple different buckets of money that have been allocated. One was from 2 or 3 budget seasons ago, money that was to be allocated to a couple of local groups, Gideon's Army and Why We Can't Wait. Neither one of those happened, and so those were part of some COVID funds. And MHRC has been an advocate for alternatives to policing, of which violence interruption is one of those things. And so this seemed to fit. We've been asking, there was a larger grant from the Department of Justice that came in well over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, that was placed with health, that nothing has happened with that. And so that is a significant amount of money that we've been raising questions about. I believe that violence interruption and the elements around it, which for me are just time and opportunity for folks who are at risk. Time to consider and do something else, and opportunities to do something else. And so we've offered ourselves to step into that place to further this along. And so we were asked to complete the contract, because by being COVID funds, there are federal timelines around where they place the money. Everything has to be finished by 12/31/26. And so somewhere in there, we have to get this, get the budget, get the person or persons approved, and get a MOU before we can start.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just to clarify, because I think I also probably missed the same meeting. So are you running a violence interruption program out of MHRC, or are you doing a grant, creating a grant in which you'll provide funds to an already established violence interruption program?
The second, with one change. All that's already been done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all that has already been done, and yes.
When you say it's already been done, does that mean that Gideon's Army, for example, was told, yes, you can do it, and the money hasn't been given to them? Okay.
No, I was in answering the commissioner's question. She was asking, were we going to be running a violence interruption program, or were we going to be setting up one? The confines of that have already been outlined. The procurement work on that has already been done, but there were no contracts given.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about?
That timeline that we were discussing, 30, 40 days, has that clock started, or is that time has
Yes, I would say,
kicked in?
yes, it has started.
Okay.
And part of it, Daniel will manage that part of it, but also part of those funds will allow us to actually hire someone that will be their job, is to make sure that whoever the contractee ends up being, that they live up to that, but it will rest under Daniel's department.
So we really haven't quite settled on the contractee, right?
No.
Okay.
No, we're still in that process.
Okay. Financial report, please.
You have it in front of you. If you have any questions, I can answer them. But what I can tell you that you may not see is from our allocation from this past budget season to what they call a true-up when they put stuff together. We were in a meeting with finance this past Friday because we're several thousands of dollars off from each other. And so all of that went well. They'll be getting back with us and what those numbers are, and hopefully it'll be reflected as we understood it to be.
questions, comments? Okay. New business committee updates. I will start with bylaws and rules ad hoc committee. Are the committee members here? I know Charles is not here. Any updates from you all? No. Okay. All right.
I can give a quick update and show appreciation to our Metro legal team. There's been some email conversations. I think I'm a delightful person, but I recognize, thank you for the laughter. Can we take that out of the minutes? I recognize that not everybody likes to get more than one email from me, and Metro Legal certainly has, and they've been very responsive, so I want to give a shout out to them. We might, I'm going to preview for you, we might be bringing to this commission, hopefully next month, but very, very soon in my hope. I've only been here a very short time, but I'm really, a burr in my shoe has been the quorum requirements, and that's something that I'm hoping Metro Legal, they've already said they would help, so I'm going to hold them to it to help us with a change. The bylaws committee commissioners who are here, I will ask y'all to stick around because, and also go ahead and look at your calendars. There was a date that was sent that we want to pull it back because, as you know, Ashley is already extremely busy. I don't want to ask her to do more work for me. I will be out serving on my own board on November 14th when I think the date was forecast for the next bylaws committee, in order that I might be there and that staff can, help add to the conversation to make sure that the edits that Charles put forward, Commissioner Trauger put forward, can be fully discussed. If we could look at our calendars, maybe think about 2 or 3 times that the 3 of us here can agree upon, we can submit those to Commissioner Charles, the chair, and follow one of those as an alternative date.
And maybe we'll follow up to see if the exec committee can do that as well, but we'll take care of that later. In terms of the executive committee, we are working to expand and see how we can further do compliance to Title VI, and we're always looking to complete follow through with the strategic plan, and we'll look to update that if needed. Community engagement.
Hello again. Okay, so I have a couple of dates for you, so please make sure you write these down so that we make sure we all attend. The first one is Human Rights Day. It's going to be December 10th. You will receive a registration link in your follow-up email. Registration is live. We recommend that you do register for that day. It is a wonderful day where we get to honor a lot of folks who are doing amazing rights towards advancing human rights, and it will be at First Baptist on Capitol Hill. So December 10th, we hope to see you there. You'll get the registration link soon. Next, we have the FILA Awards. This is the awards that we give out for folks who do amazing work in food insecurity area and providing fresh produce and meals for folks. That'll be December 6th is the award night itself. If you would like to attend, that registration link will also come your way. And then just a reminder that for MLK Day Week, I know we're already talking about January, isn't that crazy? But for MLK Day weekend, tomorrow is the last day for early bird pricing for the gala. It does sell out every year, so I'm just letting you know now. Grab your ticket if you would like to attend, because it is very, very important. You can see all of the lists of the events for the weekend. The MHRC handles the Community Banner Day. So we are on Thursday where we get to create banners with folks, churches, schools for the march on Monday. So if you'd like to participate in that, you can come help us out on Community Banner Day. Crystal and I are also the chairs for the Youth Symposium this year. So if you'd like to support youth work happening, you can reach out to us and be a volunteer that day. And then also the rally, the big march that happens on that Monday. If you'd like to support with that, please let us know as well. And then last but not least, and most importantly, November 21st, what day? Beautiful. At 6 p.m., what time? Wonderful. See, you guys are doing wonderful. Okay, so November 21st, 6 p.m., It is the inaugural Randy Rayburn Friendsgiving Feast. So we will be at the Farmers Market at 6 p.m. November 21st. You will also receive a registration link. It is where we're going to be able to honor the life and legacy of Randy Rayburn, as well as launching our campaign, Humans Over Hate. It's going to be a wonderful afternoon full of food. I'm going to tell you the menu really quick. Chicken and rice, potato causa, mac and cheese from Pepper Pot, chicken cornbread dressing balls with jalapeno and cranberry jam, collard greens with ham, sweet potato casserole with a black sugar crumble, and deviled eggs with candied bacon and caviar. I'm just saying. It is also a free event. This is completely free. So come join us for a feast. Please, 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 if you have organizations that do work around addressing hate or addressing discrimination or addressing equity issues, please send Crystal and I those names and contact information so that we can forward them the registration link. But we will be sending you the link so that you can invite folks out. We do have a capacity, but we want to make sure y'all are able to join us that night. Here's the big part. We need volunteers. So if you are able to, just take a minute right now. Take a look at your calendar. See what you have. 4 p.m. is when we'll start setup. We'll need help to set up. And then the event itself is from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll need support for the caterers to help pass out food. And then we'll need a little bit of help with breakdown at the end. So if you have time, November 21st, I'm going to take hands now. Anybody want to volunteer? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, Kathy, what's this for?
For the inaugural Randy Rayburn Friendsgiving Feast. Yeah. Beautiful. No. So we have 1, 2, 3, 3 volunteers.
I'll help with breakdown.
Yeah.
I'll teach until the end.
Beautiful. Okay. Beautiful. Ben trainer for break.
It's our big event.
Yeah. Breakdown. Beautiful. Okay. Yes. 4. Okay. 4. Do you know if you could be there? 4.
It depends on podcast world, but probably very close.
Beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And if you have students, people that you mentor that you would like to also voluntold, we welcome that as well. Just a requirement for high school students is volunteer hours. So if you know of any high school students that need volunteer hours, please send them our way. We'll be more than happy to do that. But we'll send you more details. And of course, you're all invited. Matthew, you were also invited. So thank you. Please come. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any other announcements?
I don't have an announcement, but I have kind of an overriding question that I want to ask our friends at the commission, and it has to do with some current events here in town. Recently, it was reported that Lipscomb University has added an anti-affirming statement to their what we believe values on their website, stating that effectively they believe that marriage should be between a man and a woman, and perhaps even more jarring, that sexual intimacy should be reserved for between a man and a woman. I understand that this is a private Christian college within their rights to do whatever they would like to do, but I'd be really curious to know if Metro has any current financial relationships with them in any way, shape, or form.
That sounds like a research question.
If y'all have time with all the other things you're doing to dip into that, I'd be real curious.
We will do that and get word back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the announcement question.
I've never tried to bring new business to the floor before, so I didn't know when I was supposed to do it.
We're good.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Any other announcements? Okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting before the election? A second?
Me.
Any no's, deniers? No? Okay. No abstentions? So we're all unanimously yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.